guys, welcome back to Williamson Ridge Outdoors. Today I'm going to be starting on a firewood shed to put out here beside my wood burning stove so I don't have to move wood around so much. And the plan is to kind of put the shed over here on the right side of the stove. And so the first thing I've got to do is kind of establish a layout of where I want the front of the shed to be sitting at. There's a few obstacles here. I'd originally planned on having it a few feet in front of the stove so that the wood would be positioned mostly up here in the front. So the opening of the shed would be on the front side of the stove. That way I'm just walking straight over to the shed. So the shed's going to be placed here, and then I would just walk straight over and like throw the wood into the stove. But there's a water line that runs right up through here. You can see where the ground is. We've recently had a water line run from the house up to our barn, and it runs right up this streak up through here, and that's kind of where I'm wanting one of my posts to be setting. So I may just end up having to shift it backwards just far enough to kind of clear that, and the shed's going to be sitting behind, a little farther back than what I was really wanting it to, but we're going to try that. But the idea is to get the angle of the shed lined up the same as the stove, so it kind of looks modular and looks like they were both put there at the same time, and it looks like that they go together. So the first step we got to do though is finding our front line where we want the opening of the building to be, or the wood shed to be sitting, and we're going to do that by driving some stakes in the ground, running a string on it. And then we'll work on getting our corners and stuff set up and getting everything squared up. So before I go any farther on the project, I do want to point out that I am in no means saying this is a how-to video. I'm just doing this the best that I would know how. I've never built a shed like this before. I have helped my dad growing up do stuff like forms for concrete and that kind of stuff, and I think a lot of it kind of pertains to the same basis. But like I say, this is not a how-to video. It's just how I do it and how I'm doing it. So let me show you what I've got so far. As of right now, I drove some stakes in the ground. I think maybe they call these batter boards or something, but I don't know. I drove stakes in the ground. I've got my corners of my string set, so that will be the corner of my post whenever I set it. So if you go over to this side, you can see that that's a 90. And there's a way, now on this is a GoPro camera, and it actually looks like it's bending that string a little bit. It doesn't do a perfectly straight shot on there, but I think you get the idea. That string comes to a 90-degree angle right there. You can check that with a square, or you can also do like the 3-4-5 method. So if you look right here on the string, I've got a little black mark on there, and then over here on this side I've got a little black mark. So if you measure across from the 3-foot black mark and you measure over to the 4-foot black mark, then whenever your points match up, you should be at 5 feet right there, or 60 inches. So you've got 3 feet one way, 4 feet the other, and 5 feet diagonal. If you notice here too, I dug the ground out because this actually is the highest point of where the shed will be setting, and I want the shed, I want it to be like I'm putting a floor in the bottom of the shed, because what I'm going to do is end up filling this in with some gravel and stuff to make it actually have a bottom to it. But you need to have the highest point. You start from there and work your way level, and you can see on the other end the strings are actually way up off the ground, like they're actually below the ground here a little bit. So we'll have to actually remove just a little bit of dirt to put some gravel in here. Not much, just a couple inches right here on this end of it. But then down here on this end, I don't know if you can see it real good in the camera, but I mean we're probably a little over a foot off the ground right here. But we are level, and that string's going to represent our floor height. So what we're going to set up is from that string to the header for the rafters is going to be 8 feet on the front side, and over here on the back side from the string to the rafters is going to end up being 6 feet. So that's how we get our level, because we base our building of basically having a floor, and then we measure from that so that your roof and everything ends up being level, instead of like you can't build a shed like this to match the ground, because then when you get up to your roof you've got a big leaning shed. So you have to make sure that it's level first and then work your way up. So our next step actually on this is actually going to be to dig some holes and set some posts. Something else I want to point out too, in order to make adjustments on your string, if you notice, I have a stake drove in the ground, and then beside that stake I've got a wedge. So if I needed to make an adjustment to move my string over, then I'd drive this stake in, and it actually pushes the whole post over to widen out the string. So instead of trying to move the whole post or pushing the post and wallering out your hole, you drive this wedge in beside of it. It keeps the hole good and tight, keeps the stake tight in the ground, and make sure that everything, and you can adjust it very minutely each time. Like you don't have to go a long ways. You can just barely move it if you want, or you can take pretty big adjustments. But that for me has been a good way to make the adjustments to make sure that you get everything square. So it's the next day, and yesterday evening after I got everything laid out, I went out to Lowe's to pick up my lumber and stuff. So show you what I got. I've been actually working on it already today, and I've got my 3 of the holes dug for my posts, and I'm digging the holes 24 inches, and even though my ground is unlevel, I still wanted to have 24 inches under the ground of dirt, because I'll probably end up filling this in with gravel to make it quick, instead of having to put dirt in it and then let it settle and all that kind of stuff. So my actual floor level is going to be right here, which you can see how much higher that is than what the dirt is, because this runs uphill. So I went ahead and still dug my hole 24 inches, but I've got a 12-foot 4x4 right here, so that I can still have 2 feet below the ground, and then from my floor level, which will be, you know, roughly here, from that level, then I'll still have 8 feet up to the top of the post. So my roof line is still going to be staying the same, even though my ground is sloping downwards down to this low spot right here. So I want my roof line to be exactly the same. So I have a 12-foot 4x4 here, and then I use 10-foot 4x4s over here, and these will have the roof line will be 8 feet at the top of these whenever I'm finished. So 3 more holes to go, and I marked the holes with just marking paint, and I moved my string so that I wouldn't be hitting it while I'm trying to dig. But what I'll do after I get the holes dug, then I'll come back and I'll put my strings and stuff back, and you see where I marked the corner of the post right here. This is going to be the front corner, and then of course I just kind of made myself a reference of, you know, having a little bit more so I can get concrete on you know, all sides of the post. But I'll come back after I dig the holes, and I'll run my string back around. That way I can get my corners, the front and the back outside edges. So there'll be a string running on this side, and I'll line my posts up with that string so it's good and straight from one end to the other. Got my holes dug. I put my string back up, and you can see my corner point right there. And I've gotten my post perfectly level, or straight up and down, front to back, side to side, whatever you want to call it, but it's level and plumb. And I've braced it, and I just put these side braces on, drove stakes in the ground, used wedges and stuff to shift the pole wherever I needed to, and then, like, the post is solid. I really can't move it unless I really pushed hard on it, so it's pretty solid where it's at. So I'm going to put some concrete down there in the hole, and just leave it braced up like that for now, and that way it'll stay good and rigid until the concrete sets up. And as you can see, I've got the others just kind of mocked into place, which I didn't set the last 2 in there, but I've got everything's good to go with the holes and stuff. So it's just a matter of doing the same exact thing with the 5 other posts, is setting them in the hole, getting them mocked up, bracing them off, and then putting the concrete around them and filling it in. I had the Amish come out and build a shed, or actually my barn, and they didn't put water down in these holes. All they did was dump the dry concrete in there, and they said the ground moisture would set that up. It would soak into it, and that would set up in just a little bit. So I realized I made a mess up, and so I'm going to run back out to Lowe's and to fix my problem. But what I did, my posts here on the back are only supposed to be 6 feet tall, and for some reason I was thinking 8 feet on everything, so I ended up using my 10-foot post and going ahead and setting or pouring the concrete and stuff around it before I realized, because I was thinking 2 feet down in the hole and 8 feet above it is what I needed. But on the back of the shed, it's 6 feet. So I set one of my 10-foot posts in the wrong place, and this is really kind of the height it should be, 6 feet. And I actually would have been good down there on the end too, but again, I was figuring 8 feet and not 6. So I set my end post down there, thinking that it was going to be, or supposed to be 8 feet tall. So I've got a 12-foot post sitting down there, and I only need 6 feet out of the hole. So I'm going to have a little bit of waste on that post. But this one right here is what it actually should look like, because, which I haven't set it, it's just leaning in there, but it's an 8-foot post set 2 feet in the hole, which gives me a 6-foot height. And I was thinking it backwards for some reason, so what I'm going to do to fix this, the front has got to have 8 feet. So I'm going to set a 10-foot post, and I'm going to go trade one of my 8s, because I've got an 8 left, and I'm going to trade it for 10 foot. So 10 foot plus 2 feet out of the hole, or 2 feet in the hole plus 8 feet out is 10-foot post. So I don't know, I might even get a 12 just to make sure that I'd rather cut a little bit off of it and get it right and not have to worry about trying to, if the hole is just a little bit too deep, then I'd have to fill in and all that kind of stuff. And if that's the case, then with a 12-foot pole, I can set it in there and then measure my 8 feet from my floor height or from my string height, and that'll give me 8 feet up to the top of the post. Now, this one is actually correct. I used the correct post here, so I haven't set it yet, but I was thinking that I might only need a half bag of concrete per hole. And I even asked the dudes at Lowe's about, kind of what the standard is, and they're like, well, 80-pound bags, a lot of people use a half pound per hole. I don't think that would be actually enough. So I only got 3 bags because I have 6 posts, and I'm gonna take it back, or I'm gonna get 3 more bags and put a whole bag in each one, just to be on the safe side, because I'd rather it be too strong than not strong enough. And it's about another $12 for concrete, so that's not gonna make a big dent in the budget. So but yeah, we'll run out to Lowe's and get the stuff we need and get the rest of these posts set and get our problem solved, get them cut off. We'll go from there. The reason too I wanted to show that I messed up, because once again, I am not a professional trying to do this, and don't claim to be, and it's the first time that I've ever built something like this and had to set posts and all that kind of stuff. So it's a learning process. I'm doing it myself, learning it myself just from what stuff that Dad had taught me over the years, and I'm actually applying it now, where in the past I would help him do it all the time and I would listen to him say stuff, but this is actually the first time that I've ever done it myself. So just wanted to show that I could have cut it out of the camera and not shown that I made a mistake, but I did, and it's going to cost me about an hour of time and running over and getting a couple dollars more for a 4x4 or whatever, but mistakes happen, so that's just the way it is.